And guys, we're going to try to solve something. We're going to put our little brains together and try to figure some things out, okay? There's a set of twins in Georgia who apparently disappeared. Now, a number of you sent me this story, and I wanted to wait for a little bit for more information to, come forward. From what I understand, these twins were found in the mountains in Georgia, but they were supposed to be heading to the airport to go to Boston. That was on March 7th. They were found dead in the mountains in Georgia, and they were shot. Originally, the police tried to rule it out as unalive. They unalived themselves, but obviously that didn't make any sense. And now they're saying something different. Now it appears that one of the firefighters who took pictures of their bodies when it was at the mountain is also now being arrested. This is a weird story, and we're going to get into this. And I'm going to let's put our spidey senses together and see if we can figure out what we think may have happened to these twins.
Tonight, a murder-suicide investigation in Georgia, leaving a distraught family with more questions than answers.
We want to know exactly what happened to the twins.
Police say twin brothers Khaidir and Nazir Lewis were found dead by hikers on a Georgia mountain earlier this month. The brothers, weeks away from their 20th birthday, each found with gunshot wounds, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which says their preliminary investigation reveals the deaths to be a murder-suicide.
We knew right away that wasn't true.
But their relatives rejecting that characterization by police, saying the boys were close and had no history of conflict.
They're very protective of each other. I couldn't imagine them hurting each other because I never even seen them get into a fist fight before.
Relatives saying the twins had tickets for a 7 a.m. flight on March 7th from Lawrenceville, Georgia to Boston, where they were set to meet friends.
Pause. Now let's put our spidey senses together. So first of all, I have watched a lot of documentaries, docuseries over the years about people who have just disappeared, right? So at one point they were considered missing. I don't believe that people disappear. From what I have seen from all these documentaries and docuseries, usually someone knows where they are. Oftentimes it's someone that is an acquaintance, but sometimes it is a stranger. But I don't believe that people just disappear, right? Somebody knows where they are. So let's start with March 7th. They were supposed to go to Boston from Lawrenceville, Georgia, which is here, to Boston, which is where I am, right? But they didn't make it there. So hold on to that thought. Let's go in.
But on March 8th, their bodies were found at the summit of Bell Mountain, 90 miles away from their home and in an area their relatives believe they had never visited.
Pause right there. Now, this was my birthday. That was March 8th. So if they were supposed to fly to Boston, how do they end up at Bell Mountain Summit instead of at the airport? And one question that I have not received an answer to is this. What was the transportation mode from the house to the airport? And we're not even saying they made it to the airport because I don't think that they did. Did they take an Uber? Were they driving themselves? Most people don't. Was a relative dropping them off at the airport? Did they take a taxi? This is really important because we need to know what happened from the time that they left that house. You have to start there. So did anybody pick them up from their house to go to the airport? That is the missing piece, ladies and gentlemen. We need to know the transportation method. And I can't find that information anywhere. If you guys have seen it, feel free to let me know. But I've looked all over and I haven't received an answer to that question. Because if they took an Uber, Uber would have a history of that. That would be logged. If they took a taxi, you would also think there would be a record of that. So this story does not make any sense to me. If I know you had plane tickets and you're supposed to go to the airport and you're going to Boston, how do you end up in the mountains dead? So we have to figure out what was the mode of transportation. If they took an Uber, there is a record of that. If they took a Lyft, there is a record of that in the Lyft systems. And I'm saying this because whoever may have picked them up for transportation may be responsible to what led to their death. This is important. Let's be a little bit more investigative. Let's go on.
How they end out in the mountains, they don't hike out there. They've never even been out there. They don't know nothing about Hiwassee, Georgia. They never even heard of Bell Mountains. So
But I know about Hiwassee, Georgia. I'm going to tell you about it.
how did they end up right there?
Over the weekend, authorities saying autopsies have been completed on the pair, but a medical examiner ruling had not been released because further forensic testing was needed. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations has not disclosed if a gun was found at the scene or how the twins got to the mountain, telling NBC News the investigation is active and ongoing. NBC reached out to family members for more information, but did not hear back.
They had a huge support system. Like, we know them, but they wouldn't do anything like this. Something happened in those mountains, and we want answers.
Priya Sridhar, NBC News.
Okay, so let's pause there, right? Okay, so no information about the mode of transportation from their house to what was supposed to be the airport. I believe that is key. I also think it's kind of strange that they said, oh, it must have been, they unalived themselves. But the twins were shot. They didn't find a weapon, right? Now, here's something even more suspicious. Now they are saying that a firefighter was arrested because he was accused of taking photos of the twins when they were found dead. I'm telling you guys, the story is really suspicious. Listen to this.
A volunteer firefighter arrested, accused of taking a picture of the crime scene, showing the bodies of twin brothers who'd been shot to death at the top of a mountain, and then sharing those pictures.
That's right. So the hiker found 19-year-old Khaidir and Nazir Lewis at Bell Mountain in Towns County on March 8th. This is 90 miles from their home in Lawrenceville. The GBI initially labeled the shooting as a murder-suicide. However, the family believes something more sinister happened to the twins.
11 Alive's Cody Alcorn first reported the family's concerns on Friday. He spoke with them again tonight following the arrest of this firefighter. Cody's live for us tonight in the newsroom. And Cody, the family is reacting to what's really disturbing development.
That's right, Jennifer and Ron. Obviously, they are disgusted by all of this. Now, we don't know just how many people shared this horrific picture of the twins' dead bodies, but tonight I confirmed with the Towns County schools the picture had been shared among students.
Oh my goodness.
It's scary. I'm literally scared to actually go on social media. I'm scared to pick up my phone. Because if I see that picture, I already know that I might have a heart attack.
Why would the firefighter do that? Why would he share those pictures unless it's possible that the firefighter had something to do with it? Why would he do that? That's absolutely insane. So yeah, he was arrested for sharing those photos. But like I said before, this story does not make sense. And I have watched, again, a number of documentaries and docuseries about people who just were supposed to go someplace and never made it there. And like I said, I do not believe there's a such thing as people who disappeared, because there's usually at least one person who knows exactly where that person is. Let's go on a little bit more.
Imagine if their mother see that, that would really destroy her. She's already going through a lot.
This is how the family of Khaidir and Nazir Lewis want to remember the twins. However, now worried knowing crime scene photos showing the 19-year-old's bodies with a gunshot wound have been shared outside of law enforcement.
It's very disrespectful to this family. I feel like our privacy was invaded.
The volunteer firefighter accused of taking the picture charged and arrested. As for how the twins ended up on Bell Mountain on March 8th, their aunts and uncle can't make sense of it. The twins missed their flight to Boston on Friday morning, March 7th.
Then next thing you know, we hear the news about them found in the mountains. And We're still confused. I'm like, what? The twins? Mountains? This doesn't make sense.
We didn't believe that that was even them.
And then
Yeah.
Bell Mountains, I'm like, no one even, we never even heard of before. And I know the twins never been there before. They never heard of it before. I'm like, that was super strange.
Yes.
I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
The GBI initially calling the case a possible murder-suicide. The family adamant that can't be the case.
Doesn't make any sense.
This absolutely just like
Out of character.
Yes.
Their body.
Let me show you guys something, and we'll come back to that. Cause see, I know something about Hiwassee, Georgia. Cause see, this is the part that some people are not mentioning. You guys ever heard of sundown towns? Heard of sundown towns? Okay, so check this out. Look at this. Sundown towns are all white communities that intentionally exclude African Americans or other minorities from residing within their boundaries by forced expulsion, violent threats, or economic coercion. Multiple sundown towns and counties appeared in Georgia during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And guess what's on here? As we go down, sundown towns in Georgia, you will see Towns County. And when you look at Towns County, guess what shows up? Towns County saw a sharp drop in Black residents between 1900 and 1910 and had 0 African Americans within its borders from 1920 to 1940. Oral evidence suggests the county seat of Hiwassee had a reputation for violence against African Americans, particularly after nightfall. Black residents did not account for even 1% of the county residents until 2020 census. So here's the town. And they said that the twins had never even been to Hiwassee, but Hiwassee is in Towns County, which was listed as one of the sundown towns in Georgia. You guys got to understand, if you have never lived in the Southeast, and I have lived in the Southeast, I lived in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. I'm here to tell you, once you get away from the big cities in the Southeast, some of those rural parts, you don't want to be in. Northern Georgia is notorious for that. Northern Georgia, some of them towns around there, you do not want to be in as a Black person. So you got to be very careful. People forget sometimes that outside of Atlanta does exist. People forget sometimes that the rest of Georgia is not like Atlanta. Same thing with South Carolina. The rest of South Carolina is not like Columbia and Charleston. You have to be very careful. And so I find it interesting that they were found there. So here's what I think happened, folks. I don't think the twins were killed at Bell Mountain. I think they were killed before they got to Bell Mountain. I think that they were shot and killed, and I think that their bodies were taken to Bell Mountain. Now, why do I think that? Bell Mountain has no cameras, no surveillance. That's one of the things they mentioned in the news story. So obviously they're like, well, that would be a perfect place to take the bodies because there's no surveillance, there's no cameras, nothing. No one's going to see who came in and who went out. But I don't believe that they were killed there. I believe they were killed, and I don't think they did this to themselves, obviously. I think they were killed prior and they were taken there. The firefighter business is very shady. I don't know if he's involved or not, but the fact that he took the pictures and started sharing the pictures is very suspect in my book. I don't know if it's just because he's racist or what, but even with this particular story, the truth is out there. And I think we're eventually going to find out what happened to these twins. But I find it very strange, ladies and gentlemen, that nobody has explained what transportation service they were taking to the airport. Obviously, when you go to the airport, there is going to be a record of that. The moment you check in through those gates, there's going to be a record. There's also cameras that you were there. They didn't make it there. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. They ain't make it to no airport. So They ended up in this sundown town. I think they were taken there. I want to know what the transportation was. I want to know who picked them up from the house. If someone picked them up, I want to know if it was someone that they knew. It's not uncommon for people to get a family member or a friend or an acquaintance to drop them off at the airport. I want to know why no one is talking about who picked them up from the house. And that to me is very suspect, very suspect. I don't know, you guys. Guys, you have to be very careful out there. And I've tried to warn people about these things. But out of all these types of stories that I've watched before where people just didn't arrive to the place that they were supposed to go to, this particular story to me is very, very strange. And even with the family that was sitting there, when they were talking about it, the family, to me, it almost seemed like they weren't really sure who picked them up from the house. Maybe they don't know. I don't know. But this is a strange story. It's a mystery, and hopefully more information will come out. But I do not believe that they made it to the airport. And I think we need to look into the transportation services. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.